Dear Mother, when you write to me, let me know how all my friends are and tell George Smith that I was asking for him.
I could never have imagined when Harry and some of our mates were playing baseball against the lads from Lewiston what was to transpire in the coming months and years. The entire Conway family was one of the most regarded in Sabattus, his mother Mary being a walking saint. Never was there a word mumbled that would question her dignity, deep religious beliefs, and love for her fellow human. Mary would spend countless hours volunteering at the Healy Asylum, an orphanage run by the Sisters of Charity for orphaned and neglected children. Seeing these poor urchins thrown away by parents and relatives would cause Mary to carry a heavy heart. More than willing to do beyond what was asked, even though her family was grown, she adopted 3 little ones from the Healy Asylum and raised them much as she had done with her own. So regarded was she in the local Catholic community that she was bestowed the honor to shovel the first 3 spades of earth for the construction of Our Lady of the Rosary Church. Catherine, Harry's older sister, inherited her mother's kind heart. Although she was sickly from birth, never from her lips would you hear a complaint. She achieved her dream of becoming a schoolteacher and for several years taught in the schools of Sabattus. Her health forced her to step away from teaching. This did not deter her from seeking ways to help less fortunate little souls. She was able to adopt a Belgian child whose father had been killed in the war, and the mother was one of the many missing citizens. At the young age of 28, Catherine passed away, leaving Harry broken-hearted. It seems like yesterday that Harry came running and knocked on my door. He was breathless and so excited he was jumping up and down. He was waving a letter and envelope and shouting, "I got in, I got in." He had been accepted at guide school in Rangeley for the summer. That was no great surprise to me, for none of us blokes could hold a candle to Harry when it came to gun sports or a fishing pole. The fact that he will never knock on my door again grieves me, and his voice echoes in my head. Pvt Conway, Harry's father, was an overseer in the local mills for many a year. There were hardly a few that held the respect of the citizenry, as did Mr. Conway. A man of the community, he held political positions at the local, county, and state level. He and his wife Mary carried a heavy burden with the death of their son, and it showed in their spirit and overall demeanor. Strange that through all the sadness there is always something that you remember that puts a little smile on your face. With Harry, it's when he got the mumps. Most of us fellows had already had the infliction, so we were able to visit and laugh at his swollen jowls. Then, when the daily publication of the Lewiston Journal hit the newsstand, it was even in the paper that poor old Harry had the mumps. I can remember the day that I bet my old chum's mother, Mary, coming from the post office on High Street. She had a letter from Harry, and she wanted me to read it with her. So we walked to the corner and sat on one of the shipping trunks in front of Sturdivant's store, and the letter read as follows.
Dear Mother, will write you a few lines to let you know that I am somewhere in France. The weather is just like summer over here. The stuff in the gardens is growing and the flowers are in bloom. I suppose that the boys that were in the draft are called out by this time. The streets over here are alive with soldiers. This is an awfully busy country over here right just now. Everybody works, even the children. Well, Mother, it will be a long time between letters, and you must not expect one as often as I did when I was training. When you write to me, let me know how all my friends are and tell George Smith that I was asking for him. When you write to Cousin Ella, tell her that I will write her later. The people over here seem strange to us, for we haven't got onto their ways yet. It is hard to understand them, and I suppose it is hard for them to understand us. They talk all French. There are a lot of old cathedrals over here that are beautiful. We went through one in England that was one of the oldest ones. How is little Rita getting along? Well, Mother, I cannot think of anything more to write in this letter, so when you write, address it to Private Harry J Conway, Battery F, 54th Artillery. So closing with love for you, and I remain as ever, your son, Harry.
Little did either of us know that this would be the last time that we would ever see his handwriting. The final journey for Harry started when he enlisted in Lawston's 9th Company on April 17, 1917. His actual date that he reported was July 25, 1917, at which time he was shipped overseas. There was much activity about the town during this time. Of a population of 350, 90 young men of Sabattus had reported for military duty. Matthew and Mary Conway celebrated with the entire community the signing of the armistice, which happened on the 11th day of the 11th month at the 11th hour of 1918. With flags waving, horns blowing, and church bells ringing, the townspeople were looking forward to the return of the boys who had bravely gone over there to fight for the freedom of mankind for the entire world. The joy was soon to be replaced with black flag and white cross-draped caskets carrying the lifeless bodies of those brave lads who had given all so that all could remain free. The Conways received their sons killed in action notice, which made their son the only KIA from Sabattus. The notice gave the date of death as the 8th day of the 11th month, 1918. This was just 3 days prior to the signing of the armistice. The town lost other men besides Harry, but only he from direct fire. The others were Leslie Drinkwater, who died of pneumonia in a hospital in France, Herman Taylor, who died at Camp Devens, USA. Fred Austin died after returning home from the effects of gas. Martin Phelan cheated death as he survived being hit with a machine gun bullet. This excellent article from the Lawston Sun-Journal tells the story and captures the emotion of the homage of our dear friend Harry James Conway. I quote, "Funeral services for Harry J. Conway, the only Sabattus soldier killed in the war, were held Monday morning from the home of his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Matthew Conway of this town. The impressive military funeral was carried out in full by the Lawston Post of the American Legion to honor the memory of its soldier companion who met death in action in the Battle of the Argonne, November 8, 1918, and was buried in an American cemetery in France, where the body has rested until brought here last week. High Mass of Requiem in the Holy Rosary Church in Sabattus was celebrated by Father Gill of Lawston. A firing squad of 8 veterans of the World War discharged 3 volleys as the body was lowered into the grave in Mount Calvary Cemetery, Lisbon. A special car left the head of Lisbon Street, Lawston, with the detail from the American Legion and relatives and friends of the Conway family aboard. During the trip to Sabattus, the car passed an automobile stalled by the side of the road, and which upon investigation was found to contain the Reverend Father Gill and 2 sisters. The entire detail of men turned out and soon had the car on the road and on its way again. Upon arrival at Sabattus, the Legion detail marched in formation to the Conway home, headed by the Lawston Brigade Band with Arthur Pettingill as leader. The scene was particularly impressive due to the military uniforms, the subdued playing of the march by the brigade band, the waving national colors borne by a soldier and sailor, and the Sabattus population, most of them lifelong friends of the dead soldier, grouped in sad little groups on the sidewalk, all combined to give the a somber and impressive aspect. Following the short, simple funeral services in the Conway home at 8:30, 8 bearers from the Lewiston Post of the Legion lifted the flag-draped casket into the hearse, while the muffled beating of the drum, the soldiers at attention, and the onlookers with bared heads brought back memories of similar services in France to the veterans. Then followed the slow funeral procession headed by the brigade band, playing the familiar R.B. Hall March to the little church of the Holy Rosary atop the hill in Sabattus and overlooking the lake. Nearly every home and business building in the town displayed an American flag at half-mast, and hanging above the principal street, the Sabattus service flag floated with the one golden star for Harry J. Conway. Again, the detail conveyed the casket into the little church, where it was filled to overflowing with neighbors and friends who had come to witness the last services. The Catholic services of the High Mass of Requiem, conducted by the Reverend Father Gill, assisted by the chorus of both St. Joseph's and St. Peter's churches in Lewiston, was particularly impressive, and the music was exceptionally fine. Miss Annie Curran of Lewiston sang in the Sweet By and By from the balcony, accompanied by the church organ, and John McCarthy, also of Lewiston, rendered Face to Face. At the conclusion of the services, Father Gill delivered a few remarks over the flag-draped coffin and the national colors, in which he mentioned the brave sacrifice that the dead soldier had made to uphold the honor of his country. He mentioned that it seemed to be the special wish of the Holy Rosary, for whom the church was named, that young Conway's body should be brought home to the very church which his labor had helped erect. For, before being enlisted in the old Ninth, Conway had devoted much of his time to aiding in the erection of the little church. It was evident from the remarks of Father Gill that the dead soldier was held in the highest esteem of all who knew him. Father Gill also mentioned the severe penalty imposed by the United States government of any persons who dared look inside the casket of any of the returned heroes. The funeral car returned to Lewiston following the celebration of High Mass to accompany the body to its final resting place in the Mount Calvary Cemetery in Lisbon. The casket was then accompanied by the entire company to the grave, where a firing squad of 8 members of the Legion paid their last tribute. As the body was lowered into the grave, Emile Dumais of the brigade band played taps. It is interesting to note that Raymond Davis of the Bearers was also present in France at the military funeral service when the Conway boy was buried there. I said goodbye to my old friend Harry, and the only thought that calmed my grief was the thought that this, the Great War, would be the war that would end all wars. The Sabattus Historical Society, along with the Sabattus American Legion, Post 135, are honored to offer to the community this memorial presentation of Harry J. Conway, the only killed-in-action soldier from the town of Webster during World War I. The story is entirely factual. If anyone has any information available concerning Harry J. Conway, please contact the Society. Thank you.